Many people see boxing as a brutal sport, just two bags of meat wailing on each other for ferocious appetites of other violence craving individuals. In reality, there's so much more to boxing, not just in the fighting and the strategy, but the psychological why behind a fighter's odds. Boxing is often cited as one person's fight against the struggle of life itself. And so we've compiled a list of some of the greatest boxing films that truly convey that theme. Before we begin, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Every new sub helps us achieve our goal and keeps us motivated to create new content. With that being said, I'm your host, Jamie, and here are 10 must-see boxing films. Number 1, Rocky IV. Let's face it, when it comes to movies set in the ring, the most iconic name is Rocky Balboa. All the films, with the exception of Rocky V, have been fantastic stories about personal triumph, sending the message that if you put your mind to it, you can do anything. Rocky IV, in my opinion, reaches the pinnacle of that theme by introducing us to Drago, a machine-like fighter made of pure steel, and he does the unthinkable. He kills Apollo Creed in the ring for the whole world to see during an exhibition match. As the world mourns his loss, Rocky must now take up the challenge to not only topple the Russian, but also prove to himself that he's not done yet, and work out his emotions about losing his greatest rival and greatest friend. Combine that with an epic soundtrack, one of the most badass training montages, and spectacular fight choreography that resulted in some real-life injuries when Dolph Lundgren clocked Sly Stallone in the jaw. And you've got an action-packed boxing flick that'll keep you jumping out of your seat to cheer. You can check it out for yourself over on Apple TV and Amazon Prime. Number 2, Southpaw. Starring Jake Gyllenhaal as an orphan turned boxing champion, he's on the world stage getting ready to defend the title against some heavy-hitting challengers when one night, during a press conference, his wife is shot and killed by one of the entourage of Miguel Escobar. This shatters his world as he turns to drinking, drugs, and revenge, which ends up with him losing custody of his daughter to the state. Fearing that she'll grow up an orphan just like he did, and wanting to set things right in his life, he turns to Titus Wills, a former heavyweight boxing coach who's now managing a rundown gym. In typical boxing movie fashion, he works himself up the ranks through knocking out smaller opponents, until once again, he has a position to challenge for the title against Escobar. And while the fight is brutal, it's also heartbreaking as these two work out their differences through a flurry of punches and jabs. Hop over to Netflix, Showtime, or Hulu to check this film out for yourself. Number 3, Cinderella Man. A true story based on the life and career of heavyweight boxing champion James J. Braddock, who ended up losing almost everything during the Great Depression and made one of the world's greatest comebacks in boxing history. The film starts by showing his glamorous life, pre-stock market crash, where he enjoys fancy steak dinners and bowls full of expensive jewelry, and then cuts to a few years later as that bowl now contains a rough pair of fake bridge teeth and a few coins needed to pay the monthly bills. He still fights occasionally in underground small arenas at night, then works at the docks during the day when he's offered a shift. As he looks around at his wife and kids, struggling to share a few slices of bologna, he returns to the boxing commission and has to beg for a handout. In this utter tear-jerking moment, his former manager, Joe Gold, decides to put all his stock in helping his former best friend rise back to the top. Unbeknownst to Braddock, He sells all his furniture and personal possession and sets up a few major fights. And Braddock meets those challenges head-on, rising quickly through the ranks. Eventually, he's pitted against the new heavyweight contender, Max Baer, who has a reputation of having killed men in the ring with his powerful punches. And even though Braddock's wife pleads with him to walk away, he can't. He's got something to prove, not just to the world, but to himself. Make sure to head over to Apple TV, Fandango, or YouTube Movies and check this film out. You won't regret it. Number 4, Creed. A semi-sequel to the Rocky films, they follow the life of Adonis Creed, the bastard son of Apollo Creed, who has bounced around from foster home to boarding houses all his young life, until he was eventually found and adopted by Apollo's widow, Mary Ann Creed. Adonis grows up with a good education, and even lands a high-paying office job. But it just doesn't feel right. It's not his father's legacy, it's not what he feels boiling under his skin. A rage flame that can't just be snuffed out. So he visits Rocky Balboa and asks him to train him and get him some fights. It's so heartwarming to see Rocky take on Apollo's son as a protege, just as Apollo had once done for him. And their eventual familial dynamic is like they had known each other for years. Add in a little love story by introducing Bianca, and it even feels reminiscent of the first Rocky, when all he could think about was impressing Adrian. There are 2 more sequels, making the entire franchise 8 films long. But this first installment in the new trilogy just has the most heart. You can find it over on Philo, Sling TV, Prime, and Apple TV, so make sure to check it out. Number 5, Raging Bull. An absolute classic from Martin Scorsese. This was one of the first films that rocketed Robert De Niro into the spotlight, as he portrayed real-life boxer Jake LaMotta in this thrilling biopic. It also stars Scorsese's favorite cohort, Joe Pesci, as Joey LaMotta, Jake's brother. The film bounces beautifully between black and white cinematography to gorgeous color. Following this rags to riches and back to rags story with mob intrigue and a tumultuous relationship with Vicky, as Jake is very controlling and abusive husband. Less of a heroic tale and more of a cautionary look at the world of fame and brutal sports. We watch as someone who was once able to defeat the great Sugar Ray Leonard become nothing but a washed-up comedian at local clubs in Miami, divorced and restrained from seeing his kids. A far cry from his glory days. You can see it for yourself over on Tubi. Number 6, $1 Million Baby. One of the only big blockbuster boxing films to star a female lead. This film was written, directed, and produced by the great Clint Eastwood. It stars Hilary Swank as Maggie Fitzgerald, a tough but skinny little girl from some backwoods redneck town trying to break into the world of boxing and escape her demons. Her family is absolute dog shit, and yet Maggie has steadfast morals and a determination that could put most ambitious politicians to shame. Now, Frankie Dunn, played by Clint Eastwood, is your typical I don't teach girls to fight, it's a man's sport kind of guy. But she won't quit, coming into his gym every day, paying her fees in advance, and hitting those bags every day doing her best. Eventually, Dunn can no longer ignore her terrible stance and bad techniques, and offers a few words of advice. Wouldn't you know it? The next day, Maggie is putting that advice to good use, shaping herself up to be a proper fighter. So Dunn strikes a deal with her. It's his way or the highway. And they embark on her journey to become the world's greatest female boxing champion. Sounds uplifting, right? Well, Not to spoil anything, but this film doesn't have a happy ending. At least not in the standard cheering variety most sports films reach. It's rather bittersweet. Head over to Amazon Prime, Apple TV, or Fandango to watch this masterpiece. Number 7. The Fighter. Another boxing film based on real-life events. This one follows two brothers, Dickie Euclid and Mickey Ward. Dickie used to be one of the greats, having gone toe-to-toe with Sugar Ray Leonard, and even claiming to have knocked him down, but became a crack cocaine addict and basically destroyed his career in the ring. Then there's Mickey, who's basically stuck at being a stepping stone for other boxers to beat on their way to becoming champions. This film is framed around the narrative that Dickie is part of an HBO documentary focused on his comeback, when in reality, it's about how drugs have absolutely destroyed lives. Mickey, meanwhile, just wants to be more, something he can be proud of, especially after meeting and starting a relationship with Charlene, who he wants to impress. However, his blended family thinks they have his best interests at heart, which in reality, they just want to mooch off of his earnings, and so he struggles trying to break free. It all comes to a head after a major fight is offered to him that takes place in Las Vegas, and will leave you at the edge of your seat waiting for the outcome. Hop over to Hulu, Sling TV, Prime, and Apple TV to check this one out for yourself.
Hey folks, sorry to interrupt, but we just launched our very own merch store at fatninja.shop. We sell everything from t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and more, so we would greatly appreciate it if you checked it out. All the proceeds go to our future projects, so it helps us make any kind of movies and short films that we want to make in the future. So if you got time, check out fatninja.shop. Thanks again, and back to the video.
Number 8. Rocky. The undeniable boxing classic. The film that put Sylvester Stallone on the map is more of a film about going the distance than it is about winning or losing. It's about the heart of a sports professional and giving it all you got, leaving nothing back, pushing yourself to your absolute limits and beyond. So much that the real victory is knowing you deserve to be here. Rocky isn't the smartest, nor the most ambitious at the start of the film, where he mainly makes his money as a leg breaker for the local bookie, and is in love with a girl named Adrian, who works at a small pet store. Fun fact, the turtles in the film are his actual pets, and I believe they are still alive to this day. Anyway, on the other end of the spectrum is Apollo Creed, played by the late great Carl Weathers. He's brash, full of personality, and a true showman, entering the ring with pizzazz and a booming soundtrack. Lately, though, the papers haven't been talking about him as much as he would like them to. Instead, they're talking about this young kid from Philly moving up the ranks with a powerful left hook. So of course, Apollo commands his team to set up a fight between him and this new chump, so he can prove to the world that he is, and will always be, the best. Again, this film isn't really about that outcome, but rather that Rocky steps up to this challenge and earns the respect he deserves as a strong and compatible fighter. And when that moment comes, it's beautiful. Head over to AMC Plus, Prime, and Apple TV to check this one out. Number 9. Ali. Starring Will Smith in one of his first, more serious acting roles in his early career, he portrays Muhammad Ali, one of the most recognizable names in boxing history. Smith packed on the muscle and trained with real-life boxing trainers to get in shape he needed to be for this film. And while his voice coaching needed some serious work, he does a superb job bringing the hero to life on the screen. Ali, otherwise known as Cassius X, brought a slew of controversy onto himself after converting to Islam and protesting the Vietnam War, which resulted in him being banished from boxing, only for that to be lifted so he could return to fight Joe Frazier in reclaiming the heavyweight title from George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle, a massive fight in 1974. The film does an amicable job showing all these events. Even if the time skips can feel a little compressed or disorienting, and while it was a critical success, it unfortunately failed to beat back the box office. Don't let that dissuade you, however, as it is a great and inspirational film about a man who stood by his principles and made a statement and never backed down from a fight. You can watch it over on MGM+, Hulu, Sling TV, Prime, Roku, and Philo. Number 10, The Hurricane. Reuben Hurricane Carter was an up-and-coming boxer, eager to take his place as middleweight champion when his dreams were shattered after being accused of the murder of 3 people in a New Jersey bar by white witnesses. Innocent of these charges, he was nevertheless sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms in prison. The film focuses on his life during this time, as he spends 20 years in prison, fighting these charges, which were eventually set aside, and the conspiracy surrounding the events to disgrace a prominent figure of the black community by white supremacists in the police force and government. As I mentioned before, the sentence was eventually overturned as the Federal District Court of 1985 ruled that his trial had grave constitutional violations, and that his conviction was based on racism rather than facts. In the end, Carter sums it up perfectly. Hate got me into this place. Love got me out. You can watch it all unfold for yourself over on Starz, Hulu, Sling TV, Roku, Prime, and Philo. Thanks for checking out the video. Did we leave any films off the list? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to tap that bell icon to stay up to date with our latest releases. You can reach out to us on Twitter or X at StudiosFat, or chat with us on Discord, linked below. Don't forget to check out our very own merch store located at fatninja.shop. All proceeds go towards our future film projects, so we'd greatly appreciate it. I've been your host, Jamie. Thanks again, and take care.